Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Okay, now we're ready. Shabbat Shalom. And it's good to be with you today because over the next 3 weeks, the live stream probably will not be the live stream that you're used to because uh, we'll be in Israel. We'll be down in the Arava. And so if we get together, it'll probably be something that I've recorded beforehand because it'll be late at night at this time. And so today, it's kind of interesting the way it worked out. As I've kind of worked through the material, again, the material we're covering is concerning the bridegroom and the bride in the wilderness and the preparation of the bride. And so as I was preparing, my plans were to move much faster through the material. And as it's turned out, it's been smaller pieces of material. And so the material that we're going to have for next week, whether, like I say, it's probably going to be pre-recorded, but I think that the interesting thing about it is that the setting of that teaching that I've actually, planned to do, I think it was week before last, I'll actually be in the place where the teaching took place, and at least in terms of the Torah context. So that'll be, his timing rather than our timing is sometimes better. And so I'm looking forward to that. What I want to do today is to continue talking about this transaction between the bridegroom and the bride in the wilderness, because of course that's what we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to a new Jerusalem. We're looking forward to a time when we can dwell with the bridegroom, where we don't have to be separated as we are during our betrothal period. And sometimes it's hard to be separated during our betrothal period. But the good thing is that during this period, it was customary to exchange gifts between the bridegroom and the bride. And as we've been studying this out, the pattern of it, what we saw in the scripture, that is, if Israel gave to the bridegroom a gift, like, for instance, the gifts at the tabernacle or for the building of the tabernacle, then he in turn gave her gifts, except where her gifts were sourced from the natural realm, his gifts are sourced from spiritual realms. They're sourced from heaven itself. So in that sense, as we offer the natural gift, not as if we created it, but see, he created it. So we're not taking anything out of our pockets to give to him. He created the earth. So there's nothing in our pocket he didn't put there, but he gave us a choice whether to remove that resource from our pocket and to give it to him as a gift. And so he accepts that gift, and then he in turn sends another gift back, but it's like the gift we gave to him. It'll be related in some way to the gift that we gave to him. And when it goes up into the spiritual realms, then it's perfected when it comes back down. And so that's a never-ending cycle. It's a relationship of giving. It's not checking off boxes, or like we said last week, it's not like making something from a cookbook where you're going to get the exact same result every time, where there's no real relationship. You can just memorize the recipe and get the same result every time. This is a relationship. It's a cycle of giving, receiving, giving, receiving, giving, receiving. And each time this transaction takes place, it's part of his perfecting. He's perfecting us. And so it becomes a relationship. It's not a dead-end gift. It actually makes regifting the ideal. Taking what the other one has given us, adding what creativity we can offer, us, of course, from a natural level, him from a spiritual level, beautifying the gift and then offering it back. And so in that sense, there is no such thing as just give and receive. There is such a thing as offering, transforming, giving, receiving, transforming, offering, receiving, transforming, and it just keeps going in that cycle. So that's what we've been covering over the past weeks. And I want to continue to work with this because the point of taking so much time with this transaction is that it's setting a foundation for where I want to go later. And setting that foundation, I think it's going to help you to see that next level much more clearly. When you see how really, the whole time we're really touching heaven. It's just above us. And it has to do with our ability to offer up. The sacrifices were something that were offered up. The wave offering, something that's offered up. And so when we give a gift, that demonstrates even in the direction of the giving that, yes, we offer up and then he hands down. But we want to make sure that we don't forget that it's a relationship. And so I want to reread a passage for you before we jump into it. And it's from the gift horse teaching that we did, because that particular passage illustrates how, yes, we give the natural gift, but it's Adonai who is going to perfect it in spiritual realms and then gift it back to us. Okay, so let's pull this up. This is going to be Isaiah chapter 4, verses 2 through 6. And this is the result of gifts that Israel has given to the Holy One. She's offered up holy gifts, right? So when she takes her gifts, and see, the gifts that we give him, they're designated. In temple times, something was designated. If you were going to give a first fruits, this was a designated portion and it couldn't be used for anything else. Once you designated an animal, say for a sacrifice, it couldn't be used for anything else. A firstborn animal of certain kinds, it was designated. It couldn't be used for anything else. So in that sense, you can see how a tithe or a first fruits offering, a designated animal, or even a designated grain offering, once it's designated, it attains a status of holiness. It's set apart for that use and that use alone. Now, in some cases where it would be difficult to take the thing all the way to Jerusalem, you could sell it for money, and now the holiness that was in that animal or in that basket of grain or in that basket of fruits, now the holiness is actually, believe it or not, transferred to the money. Like, never heard of holy money before, but that's what happened. It transfers from here to here. Then you take that money in your hand, you go up to the temple, and then there you can donate the money, or you can repurchase something in Jerusalem that is unblemished, and then you can offer that. So you can turn it into money for the trip and then turn it back into something else. But at each state, it's retaining holiness. No matter which transformation of it, it still has the status of holiness. So when we give holy gifts to him, we can see in this passage in Isaiah how he rewards a gift of holiness from the natural realm with a gift of holiness and perfection from the supernatural realm. So it says, in that day, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth will be the pride and the adornment of the survivors of Israel. It will come about that he who is left in Sion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy. Everyone who is recorded for life in Jerusalem. You see what's happening here? You've offered yourself as a living sacrifice. You have designated yourself. You have said, I will make my life a living sacrifice. I will not mix with the uncleanness of the world. I will set my life apart for him. And because you take this earthly flesh and you designate it through all its transformations, you designate it, and then you lift it up to him. It becomes holy. And so what happens at the resurrection? Those who maintain that designation and set apartness unto him for holy use, their reward is to be able to remain in Jerusalem and have a perpetual designation of holy. It says they will be called holy. Everyone who is recorded for life in Jerusalem. Now, you could be recorded for life somewhere else out in the nations, but those who are called holy, remember, he's the one who perfects it in spiritual realms. You offer everything you have in the natural realm. It's elevated up into a spiritual realm. He resurrects you, he perfects you, and now he plants you in Jerusalem. And your gift is to be called holy and recorded for life in Jerusalem, as opposed to other places where you could be recorded. And then he describes how this happens. He says, when the Lord has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged the bloodshed of Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and the spirit of burning. So right here, we just read something that's really beautiful, and it's about being holy and remaining in Jerusalem, being recorded for life in Jerusalem. And then he says, but there's a process. It says he is going to wash away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purge the bloodshed of Jerusalem from her midst by a spirit of judgment and a spirit of burning. Now, a spirit of judgment, a spirit of burning, that doesn't sound so great, especially if you have not made that holy offering. If you have not lived your life as a living sacrifice to him, offering it up for his spiritual perfection in the transaction, if you've been accumulating this filth without any transformation, if there's been no gift exchanges as you awaited the bridegroom, then it might be that you get washed away with the filth. It might be that you're one who is purged with the spirit of judgment and the spirit of burning. Okay, so that part's not so great sounding, but it's necessary, because if it's going to be a holy place, then absolutely. If there's anything there that has not been dedicated, consecrated, and offered up, then it can't stay there. It has to go somewhere else. It says, then the Lord will create over the whole area of Mount Sion and over her assemblies a cloud by day, even smoke, and the brightness of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory will be a canopy. There will be a shelter to give shade from the heat by day, and refuge and protection from the storm and the rain. Right? So the end product kind of switches back here. Once the filth and the bloodshed is washed away with a spirit of judgment and burning, now this purified area, this sanitary area of Mount Sion, and it says, and her assemblies. What are our assemblies? We assemble on Shabbat. We assemble at Pesach. We assemble at Shavuot. We assemble at Sukkot. There's some others in there too. There's 7 Moedim. The assemblies, they are going to have a supernatural covering, just like they did in the wilderness, a cloud by day. And it says even smoke. And then the brightness of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory will be a canopy. So there will be a source of light in this glory that will not be sourced from the sun or the moon. It will be the glory of Adonai himself. And it says there will be a shelter to give shade from the heat by day, and a refuge and a protection from the storm and the rain. So there'll be supernatural conditions in Jerusalem. It won't be like the purely natural earth that we experience today. The experience will be protection from the heat of the sun, protection from storms, especially the rain. The water source is the land will be watered a little bit differently than we're used to. And so we can see how when he provides this for the bride, that yes, she has offered up her obedience. She's offered up herself. And nevertheless, he has taken her gift. He is perfected. And now the reward is to be recorded for life in this really supernatural place. He has perfected what she has given to him. And now the reward. Right, so let's take it from there. Okay, I will jump into the newsletter. If I can find it here. Right, so we can see that that was a forever portion in this regifting process of adorning her. Because remember, part of the adornment, it's like it says, of course, we're connected to the branch. That's important. Right? The branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious. And the fruit of the earth will be the pride and the adornment of the survivors of Israel. So part of our garments, part of that which adorns us is going to be the fruit that we will be able to bring forth if we are counted among those survivors. You can see kind of the tree imagery here with the branch and then being adorned with the fruit of the earth. And we know that these fruits will perpetually produce. So we've got this regifting, this transaction that goes on. And the custom was whatever the bride gave, the bridegroom would double. And in this case, what we just read in Isaiah is it's even more than doubling, it's eternal. An eternal portion, a forever portion, is way more than just double. And so, you know, the thing to be concerned about right there in the middle is kind of sandwiched in there with that gift. And it really is a gift to her, because if she has been striving to offer herself up as a living sacrifice, if she has been striving to take the natural gifts that she has and allow them to be offered up for the kingdom, then of course she's going to be vexed when there is filth. She's going to be vexed when there is bloodshed. And so even though no one wants to see a spirit of judgment and a spirit of burning, this is a preliminary step that Adonai says he must take in order to prepare that final preparation in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and even, we're going to read some other passages eventually that says Jerusalem and Judah, that there will be an extended territory. And I think I understand how that works, because sometimes Judah is used as a representation of all the tribes, right? So it's kind of like an inclusive way of speaking of things. So the Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, they're going to be maintained in a state of perpetual holiness that is suitable for the bride. Her covering of glory, that gift is never going to be lost. It's not ever going to decay. So you say, well, how exactly does the spirit of judgment and burning work? Well, I guess, number one, read the book of Revelation. I think that describes in pretty graphic detail his spirit of judgment and burning. But I think he's gone through cycles of this before. He's gone through a purification process before, maybe in every generation. And it hasn't been so long ago that I read that since October 7th of 23, 82,700 citizens have left Israel. Now, I forget how many actually went in. They're, believe it or not, people are still making aliyah. They're still going in. So there's a pretty sizable number here who just threw up their hands and said, it's not worth it. I don't want to live here in a war. They go to other nations as if they will be safe there. That's another question. I don't think they will be safe. But in their hearts, they just didn't want to be there with a war going on. It just wasn't worth fighting for. It wasn't worth holding the ground. And so in that case, we can see that Adonai will find out who's ready to stand in the promise of the land and who isn't ready. Preparatory to inviting the bride in, he's washing away some unbelief. He's washing away some godless motivation. If you were only there for economic opportunities, if you were only there maybe because family was there, if it was a godless motivation, that might need to be taken somewhere else until there's a heart change. So it's not as if he's only dealing with the citizens of Israel right now. He's dealing with us as well. He is contending. He says, I will take you into the wilderness of Egypt, the wilderness of the peoples, and I will contend with you. So we're not pointing the finger. We're saying he's doing it everywhere. He's washing off of us as well any filth and bloodshed. If we have filth and bloodshed in our hearts, he's going to expose it. He's going to give us an opportunity to see it in ourselves and repent of it. In every nation where we're exiled, so it doesn't matter where you live, he's looking for his bride. So judgment and burning has exposed, and it will expose our own relationship with the Holy One of Israel. So even though right now it feels like we're in the midst of heavy bloodshed, if you'll notice the pattern in Scripture, sometimes in order to purge something, to make way for the faithful, it takes more bloodshed, more judgment, more burning in order for that to take place. So let's just let any unrepentance go up in smoke. And according to all these prophecies and scriptures, yes, the last days, filthiness does become more exposed. That's what the book of Revelation says. Let the one who is filthy go on being filthy. Let the one who is holy go on being holy. It's the point of the judgment and the burning is to expose who you are, your fitness to be included as the bride. If not, he's going to wash that away. He's going to remove it. He's going to burn it off. And when that process is complete, it can be seen those who are recorded for life in Jerusalem, not just those who will have visitation rights. Now, see, the nations, there will be survivors among the nations, and they will be recorded for life in their assigned coastlands. They'll want to come up at the feasts. They'll want rehabilitation. They'll want re-education in his word. And once they're re-educated in his word, their hearts, again, will move them to want to go up and to visit. They'll want to be instructed. They'll want to experience his presence at those appointed times. But there will also be a bride who is not required to return to some other nation after a feast because her citizenship, she's been recorded for life, Isaiah says, in Jerusalem. She will have an inheritance in the land. She is a permanent citizen, and this is a gift of the bridegroom. And that's what he says. At that time, the Lord will create over the whole area of Mount Sion and over her assemblies. Okay? So that's why we're emphasizing all the time, assembling at Shabbat, assembling at the Moedim. That's why we observe them. We are rehearsing how to live under a holy gift. We're learning how to live under the cloud of glory. And he says, over her assemblies, a cloud by day, even smoke, and the brightness of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory will be a canopy. And remember, there is a chuppah, a wedding chuppah, a wedding canopy. And he says, I'm going to spread this canopy, this chuppah, over my bride, and she will have shelter from the natural elements of the heat by day, from the natural elements of the storm and the rain. So you see why it's a big deal that Yeshua could speak to the storm and the rain, because he's the one who will provide that chuppah, that covering for his bride, so that she is not harmed. That's an eternal gift that the bridegroom is giving to the bride. So she not only has protection from the natural elements, she has privileges in his presence, because that cloud, remember, it represents his hovering, his covering presence, the wedding chuppah. She doesn't have to go out from it anymore. Now, she might be, we don't know. Well, it remains to see. She might be dispatched with a mission to the nations, but it's entirely possible that she would never have to leave the holy city. And we know from Ezekiel that the borders of the land itself will stretch all the way from Egypt up to the Euphrates River. That's a much bigger piece of property than we look at now when we look at a map. From Egypt all the way up to basically Iraq, if we looked at a modern map. So what's happening here? He's stretching out the land to accommodate this population of obedient people. His bride, he wants to protect them from the natural elements. So I'm thinking that possibly if we look at the way that the tribes camped in the wilderness, they camped around the Mishkan, they camped around the place of his most focused and powerful presence, but yet they were covered with a canopy of cloud. Like Paul said, we were all under the cloud. And it was a bright cloud. It maybe even brighter than the sun itself. I mean, glory, sunshine. But it could be, since they're all under the cloud, that his presence as well will extend over that entire full territory of Israel, from the Euphrates to Egypt, not the area we see today. And those who live under that cloud are protected even from the natural elements of wind, fire, water, storm. If you're farming in that land, it says every man under his vine and under his fig, you're going to be engaging it and experiencing it as the Garden of Eden once again descended, once again kissing the earth. And we can see at that point how the spiritual gift perfects the natural resources. That's the way the Garden of Eden worked. The spiritual presence of Adonai perfected those natural resources of the garden. So it says, in that day, the branch of the Lord is going to be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth will be the pride and the adornment of the survivors of Israel. Now, there's different kinds of fruit. There's one kind of fruit from the natural earth, but these fruits are so glorious because they're Edenic fruits, fruits of the garden. And remember, the spies who went into the land that Moses sent out, they saw these fruits. They're preparing to cross into the land, because remember, if it weren't for the golden calf, and if it weren't for the evil report of the 10 spies, the offer was basically, as they crossed into the land, they could enter back into that Edenic state. They had to have faith, though. 10 out of the 12 did not have faith. They were already on probation with the golden calf thing. And then they make the second big mistake. They say, we can't do it. There's giants in the land. Well, of course they're giants. Of course they're giants. Look at the size of the fruit. And so even though they see these Edenic fruits, they don't think that they're capable of living in that land. They must have sensed the requirements to live in that land under the presence of Adonai. They just didn't think they could live in that state of holiness. And you say, well, where are you getting that? Remember, Moses asked them when they return. You have to go into the Hebrew text to see the difference between the way it's usually translated and the way the Hebrew actually reads. Moses asks them if they saw a tree, which that's a little odd. They saw lots of trees. Why is he asking about a tree? Is there one tree that they were supposed to have seen? Well, remember, Moses has been up on the mountain. He saw the perfect pattern. And when he's up on the mountain, he's going to see the tree of life. He's going to see the center of the garden. He's going to receive a copy of the 10 words. He's going to receive in his hands, he's going to be able to hold the equivalent of the tree of life, the written word. The tree of life is the word of Adonai. It's the Torah. It's his wisdom. And so Moses wants to know, did you see the tree? He knows that hovering right above this land is the Garden of Eden and the tree of life, this tree of immortality. Did you see that tree? That's how you know that they were, yes, already walking in a semi-supernatural state. Clothes that don't wear out, shoes that don't wear out, this canopy over them that protects them from all the elements. Rather than causing the rain, the cloud protects them from the rain. So they go into the land, And they see, yes, this is not normal territory. The fruits here are enormous. I mean, it's not like you would pick a bunch of grapes to have for lunch. You would pick a grape to have for lunch. That's how enormous the fruit is. That's how fruitful the fruit is. And remember, Isaiah says, this will be your adornment. Your adornment is going to be the fruits. The bride is going to be able to walk about the Garden of Eden, because remember, it's going to come down, it's going to kiss Jerusalem at the least. I believe it might kiss the whole land. And so that will be her adornment, is to be able to enjoy those supernatural fruits that at least 10 out of the 12 thought, oh, it's impossible. You can't live in that state of holiness. They really were saying he can't resurrect us in perfection. And Caleb and Yehoshua said, oh, yes, he can. He can resurrect us. He can give us immortality if we will trust him. We have to offer him ourselves, but he will perfect us if we will offer it to him. So yes, it was a tree that Moses wanted them to see. It's the tree from which all kinds of good fruit trees grow. It's the original tree, the branch, Yeshua. Remember, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious in that day. Now, Ezekiel described it as many fruit trees, like 12 fruit trees, a fruit tree yielding each month, even though there's no sun or moon. These trees will yield each month. Like, they don't have to see the sun or the moon in order to know what month it is, in order to know what time to bear. They just know. Like Pastor Mark was saying in service this morning, how did the animals know to get on the ark? They just knew. Nature responds to holiness. Nature responds to the Holy One. The question is, do we? Are we a shoot from that branch? Are we connected to that branch? If we are connected to that branch, we are connected to the tree of life. And if we are connected to the tree of life, a day will come where we don't have to look around for our calendar to know what day it is. We will know what day it is. We will know what month it is. So Ezekiel's like, okay, there's 12 different kinds of fruit trees. But listen to the difference between what Ezekiel sees and what John sees, because I don't think it's really a difference. I think they're describing the exact same thing. On either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Right? So what Ezekiel saw as many fruit trees, John sees as the tree, the word of Elohim, which is correct. Yes, absolutely. Remember, 10 evil spies, they didn't believe that Israel, the bride, could ever live in such a holy place according to the tree of life, the word. Moses had the word, and they're hearing the education of Moses in that word. He's imparting to them the tree of life, and they're like, oh, I don't know if we can ever produce this kind of fruit. I don't know if we can do it. Caleb and Joshua knew they could do it. And you know what? They were the survivors. That's exactly what Isaiah prophesies. He says the survivors in Isaiah 4:2. The survivors of Israel, they will live. They will cross over with the believing assembly at the appointed time. So yes, if we are connected to the branch, if we are connected to the tree of life, then yes, those 12 tribes would produce different kinds of fruit, but every one of those fruits is connected to the tree, the tree of life, the word of Adonai. Each of those 12 tribes had a mission. They had some particular blessing, some particular way of ministering to the nations. And so, you might have a fig ministry. You might have a pomegranate ministry. You might have a banana ministry. A banana ministry would have to be the fun group, right? But whatever your fruit, he says, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to send my sap into your fruit tree so that you can produce what you need. Not just to feed the nations, your fruit, but so even your very leaves will heal them. Because the tree of life, the word of Adonai, it heals. It heals from wrong thinking, from wrongdoing. So in the wilderness, there was a mishkan, a tabernacle. Mishkan, you hear shakan there, which is like to dwell, the presence. That's where the bridegroom's presence dwelled between the two cherubim. Remember, the two cherubim also protected the entrance to the garden and the tree of life. But remember, his extended presence hovered over the entire camp in a cloud. So yes, the tribes are all under the cloud, as Paul said. It extended over all their dwellings, their tribal territories where they camped around his presence. And in that sense, even though the presence was more concentrated between the two cherubim, his presence extended all the way to the boundaries of the camp. In that sense, as long as they were under the cloud in their territories, they never left his presence. It hovered in such a dramatic way, like Isaiah is describing. That restoration of his presence, it's really a truly beautiful turn of phrase when you read that passage in Isaiah 4. Because it's part of the eternal gift that the bridegroom is going to give his bride. And that's why it's important when we assemble, when we look at the appointed times or Shabbat, that we not give into that assembly begrudgingly, that we not attend that assembly begrudgingly. Everything we have, everything we are, belongs to him. Yeshua even said, nobody can even come to him unless the Father draws him. The fact that we even found the tree of life, the tree of life, the Torah, that is not to our credit. Torah is a gift for the holy assembly of the bridegroom. It teaches his appointed times to the bride. So the Father drew us to the Torah. It's up to us what we do with it. Remember, he gifts it to us. It is up to us what we do with it. But you have to admit, he drew us here. There's not one of us who can say that the Torah is our own original work of righteousness. There's not one of us who can say that we created the Torah. It's not our original work of righteousness. That's why we have to look at this as a gift transaction, a continual circle of gifting and regifting and regifting. Because remember, the Torah first dwelled with the Father. And then he gave it to Moses in a written form. And then he gave it to us in a human form. He put that gift in our possession. But once we accept that gift, see, not everybody's going to accept his gift. Not everybody's going to accept Shabbat, at least for now. Not everybody's going to accept his appointed times. They prefer theirs. But the Father will draw us and he will say, this is a gift. And I would like to put this gift in your possession. I would like to put the tree of life in your possession. But the cost of the tree of life is obedience, because this is the condition of the garden in which you will live. Holiness and obedience go together. So if you want me to dwell in you, not just be somewhere out there in the nations having to make a trip, not just out there outside the outskirts, maybe where the lepers hang out. They say, let the one who is unclean go on being unclean. If you're not going to see it as a gift, you'll just go on being unclean. But if you accept my gift, I'm going to start to clean you up. I'm going to take you from holy place to holy place. Every time we exchange gifts, it will be a process of sanctifying you, making you holier, and bringing you closer and closer to those two cherubim. I'm offering you an eternal relationship. So we can't ever forget the origin of the gift. When we give a gift of obedience, when we give a sacrifice, when we give him thanks, when we give him a tithe, when we give him a first fruit, when we offer up a prayer, it's because he first gave to us. And so when we offer up that gift, whatever it is, like I say, it might be a thing that you offer him, that you give away. It might be something you sell and turn into money. Well, if you have designated that thing and you turned it into money, for most of us, it might be a certain percentage of our work week. We might say, okay, if I have a 40-hour work week, I'm going to set aside a holy portion of my work. And he says, and you can turn it into money. And so we get that paycheck. It's been turned into money. The work has been turned into money. You know what? If we consciously designated that, we now have money that is holy. There is a certain amount of money in our bank account that is holy. And then you have an option. You can take that holy money and you can offer it to the assembly, or you can turn it over a different way. Right? There's many ways to do it. You can offer your own gift of time to the assembly. Maybe you volunteer to go vacuum it, the literal building. Maybe you give to orphans and widows. There's all sorts of things that you might be doing. But he really wants us to get used to giving into an assembly, so that you understand, when the Israelites brought the gifts and gave them to Moses, Moses was just the manager of the gift, the holy gifts, the designated holies. And so under his supervision, they began to build a tabernacle. And you can see by what Isaiah describes as what he gives them in return, that he has transformed the gift. Because no, it wasn't given to Moses. He merely managed it. And so sometimes those holies will be offered to someone, especially since there's not a temple anymore, or at least not yet. But does he want you to practice and rehearse? He does. He wants you to practice and rehearse the appointed times, so that you are prepared as a bride when the garden descends and kisses Jerusalem once more, that you were prepared, because you've been offering this whole time, letting him perfect you, letting him perfect you. You offer up in faith, you wave it, and he perfects it and gives it back to you so you can give it again. I don't know if you've ever gotten that game with a little kid. They'll give you something, and then you give it back to them, and then they give it to you, and you give it back. And I don't understand how that works, really. But it's kind of like that. He gives it to us, we give it to him. He gives it to us, we give it to him. And what's really important, I think, is that we are intentional when we do this. When you give him a gift, money, time, prayer, an act of obedience that was difficult. And we all do acts of obedience that are difficult. It might even be something you didn't say. You really wanted to say it, and you kept your mouth shut. That was a sacrifice of obedience. You know, sometimes you give him the fruit of your lips, and sometimes you keep your lips shut, and that's still a sacrifice. Whatever it is, get into the habit of watching the smoke rise. I want you to see that gift as touching a spiritual realm just above the earth, no higher than the height of a balsam tree. And I want you to see those enormous fruits that Joshua and Caleb saw. Let seeing those enormous fruits transform you. Because see, if you will see the enormous fruit he's promised the bride, dwelling in his presence under the cloud, if you can see that when you give whatever you give, it may not feel like what you're giving him is worth the enormous fruits you'll be rewarded with. But if you will give it with a willing heart, and if you will give it intentionally, if you will give it because you want to know Yeshua, if you will give it because you just want to be an extension of the tree, you just want to be a tree of righteousness and bear whatever type of fruit you're supposed to bear at the appointed time. You just want to be an extension of the tree of life on this earth, to minister to the nations. If you will give with that kind of heart, then he will transform it and it will come back to you. But I want you to watch the smoke. Watch it go up. Watch your incense prayers go up. Because Yeshua taught the rich young man, the bridegroom doesn't want you just ticking off boxes of commandments. That's the way the world wants to see the Torah. It's just like, oh, you don't have to do all those, you don't have to check off all those boxes. Well, that's because I think probably sometimes that's the way we engage it. Okay, did that one, did that one, did that one. You know what? The rich young man told Yeshua, he says, you know, what do I do to enter into eternal life? And Yeshua says, keep the commandments. He says, I've done that for my youth. I've been checking off boxes. And Yeshua says, aha, I see the problem here. You've been checking off boxes. Okay. Sell everything you have on this earth, all your natural resources, and follow me. Make your life a living relationship with the tree of life. Become a living prayer. Because see, all those commandment boxes you've been ticking off, the whole point of those commandments was to draw you into a relationship with the tree of life, to draw you into a relationship with the living word, to draw you into a relationship with the bridegroom. It wasn't so that you could tick off 613 commandment boxes, or even 10, or even 2. He gave you those commandments to bring you into a relationship with him. And you see, that's why 12 disciples followed him. That's not a random number. They were prophesying not just of the 12 tribes, but of the 12 kinds of fruit trees that are going to bear every month in the millennium, because they are in a relationship with the branch, with the tree, the righteous branch. And that's what the bridegroom does. He uses mitzvot, commandments, and prayer to draw us into the eternal gift, transactions of growing, abiding in holiness, finding a new level of holiness, finding a new level of holiness. And because those mitzvot keep us in a close relationship with him, it sanctifies us more and more and more. Not because you did the commandment, but because you let the commandment bring you into relationship to him based on obedience. And so you don't just dump off your sacrifice on the Temple Mount and walk away. You don't just mumble a blessing so you can eat. You don't just say the Shema so you can go to sleep. Linger, hang out. Take a few moments to think about the words you just said. Linger in his presence after a prayer. When you pray the prayer, think about what you expect it to accomplish. Don't just dump off the sacrifice. It's smoke going up. That's going to be transformed into what comes back down. So if you want to feel disconnected from his gift, then disconnect from your gift as you offer it. But if you want his gift to connect you in a deeper way, then connect with your own gift and say, here it is. This is what I hope that it will accomplish. Because remember, sacrifices, they were for specific things you wanted to accomplish. They weren't random things. Just let me throw a lamb in there. No, there was a specific purpose. You killed an animal. Why would you kill an animal? For no reason. You needed to know what it was supposed to accomplish. Why just bloodshed? He's going to purge out that kind of bloodshed. A mitzvah could be nothing more than bloodshed if it's not accomplishing the purpose for which it should improve your relationship. So whether it's for thanks, for praise, for repentance, for guilt, fellowship, whatever you're putting that on the altar to do, pause long enough to watch the smoke go up and appreciate what that's going to do now that it's kissing heaven. And just try to imagine what he's going to do with that smoke when he sends it back down to you, when he re-gifts it to you. When you pray those prayers, what are you trying to accomplish? What are we doing? What are we doing here? We're building a relationship with the bridegroom. That's what we're doing. So yeah, that's kind of my theme for the last few weeks is watch the smoke. Hang around. In most cases, we can probably not even imagine how that gift's going to come back down again. But trust me, it will. It will. We can't be like the rich young man, just fulfilling the commandment. Yeshua says it's a relationship. These 12 over here gave up everything and followed me because they wanted to know the gift giver. They wanted to know the mitzvah giver. And sometimes, because we're in a learning process, we can focus way more on learning the mitzvah, the nuts and bolts of the mitzvah, than learning the metzaveh, the commander. There's the command and there's the commander, the mitzvah, the metzaveh. I will get to know the metzaveh through his mitzvah. But if I'm only learning the mitzvah and I don't really care about a relationship with the metzaveh, I've got an issue. Then it can very quickly turn into a matter of self-righteousness. See, the rich young man, he kind of thought that was all he needed to do. And Yeshua at first said, okay, just do that. Just do that. But I've done that. Oh, but really you haven't, rich young man. You really haven't. Because you don't know him. And I use this analogy, I think, with the Torah class this week. It's like watching a choir. And when you're watching a choir, you can tell more about the choir director than the choir. Because there's some choirs I've watched, they've learned the music, they know the notes. They're singing all their little parts perfectly. But there's no expression. The music is not moving them at all. But there's some choirs, they are in 100% tune with the choir director, not just the notes. You can be in tune with the notes, but are they in tune with the choir director? Because a good choir director, all eyes are on him or her. They're in total sync, no matter what part they're singing. And you know what? They've become the music. They've become the song. They're not just singing notes. They have become the song. A good director will pull that out of a choir, put them in that sort of unity. Your life is a song. Everything you do is a note in that song. When you keep the commandments, you're singing those notes. You are a song of creation, right? You're singing those notes. But are you just singing the notes because that's the correct note? Which some of us are singing way off key at times, but let's assume you just sing the correct note. What good is it? You're just singing the song. But if your eyes are on the song director, the creator of the song, the one who spoke the world into being with the song, if your eyes are on him and you are in absolute unity with his direction of that song, of how you're keeping that commandment, that note, that series of notes in your day, then you are becoming the song. You are becoming a living Torah under his direction. See, under his direction, if you're paying attention, you will become that song of the Torah. If you're just standing there singing the notes, you might get a different result. And nobody wants to listen to that, really. Nobody wants to listen to that. People want to listen to the choir who have become the song. Okay. Tried to pour it out there for you before we leave in the morning. So keep us in prayer, please. I'll be in Israel for a few weeks. Not sure at this point exactly when I'll be back because they canceled my return flight already. Hope that's a good sign. But we'll have to work out exactly how it is we're supposed to get back. But keep our little band in mind over the next few weeks, and we'll be in touch, whether it's a live stream or a live stream I have to record for you because of the time difference. I don't know if I can stay up that late once my body clock adjusts, but understand that I will be thinking about you, and I will think of myself as your representative in the land, just like, you know, the 12 spies. I want to be the one that gives your good report, that we can take it, we can do it, we can do it. He can fix things. He can fix us. You know, the 10 spies, they just didn't think he could fix them. Or they didn't want to be fixed. We can't be the ones that don't want to be fixed. I want to be fixed. I'm defective, but I want to be fixed. And I know he can do it. I can't on my own. Because even if I could on my own, I would just be that robot choir. But I know he can not only fix me perfect me, regift me, I know he can make me into a song of praise and worship to him. And so I do want to represent you well, no matter what challenges might lie ahead. And we know there always are, especially this time. The ceasefire right now is tenuous in the north. Anything could happen at any time. We found that out on October 7th. But nevertheless, we press forward. We put our feet in the land, and it's an act of faith. And hopefully that act of faith, like I say, we represent others who would like to be there if they could. And so that's a heavy responsibility, because we have to comport ourselves as you would comport yourself if you did have the opportunity to go and make that proclamation of faith is, yes, when it's time to cross over the Yarden, he's going to resurrect us. He's going to perfect us. And we can have a grape for lunch. We can have a fig for supper. I want to see those enormous fruits. I'm not necessarily interested in toting them around, but I would definitely like to be so connected to the tree of life that I could be adorned with fruits like that, and that I could actually be a source of healing for the nations. And I know that's what you want too. So that's why I say I'm your representative when we go. Doubt if I'll be up in Jerusalem unless, sometimes we fly by the seat of our pants. But if I know somebody that is headed that direction, I will ask them to put a prayer on the wall for us, for you, for me, for healing and all good blessings, that those good gifts come back exactly as we need them to be transformed. Right? So I love you. I said, I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back together live, but I'm going to make every effort to connect with you. So over the next few weeks, just know that good things are happening, even if I'm not here with you live on Shabbat. Okay? Okay. Love you. And until I see you again, Shavua Tov.